This is The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. With your host, Tyson Gifford and William Rower. Episode 142. Recorded January 25th, 2018. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of TVEnthusiast.com. I'm your host, Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host here at TVE, William Rower.
Hello.
So today, as usual, we are going to be covering our three main topic shows, Peaky Blinders, The Magicians, and Black Mirror. We'll also, as usual, take a look ahead and see what's coming out in the next week once we finish that. But let's get started right away on the shows that we're covering. So let's start off with Peaky Blinders, Season 4, Episode 3, Blackbird. So, a few little interesting things happened in this episode. Mainly, I think I've come to the conclusion that the only sane people in the Peaky Blinders are Tommy and Michael.
Yeah.
Arthur is just going through hell to try to retain the right to, kill Sangretti, that Adrian Brody's character. He wants to be the one to kill him out of some obligation to John. And
right.
Tommy and Polly and everybody are just like, dude, we just need to fucking kill him.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who kills him. He just needs to fucking die.
Right.
And he's
Arthur's
no, it has to be me.
Yeah, Arthur's it has to be me. Arthur's upset with Tommy because Tommy handed off that honor to Gold, who doesn't appear in this episode, but he's referenced.
Yeah. But it's not even that he necessarily handed it off to him so much as that he is also giving the information to him.
Right.
It's basically Tommy's basically like, you kill him, I don't care. Gold cares him, I don't care. Just somebody kills him. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all that matters.
And so Arthur's upset not because it's Gold that's gotten the honor to kill him. He could still kill him. It's just a matter of he's upset that it's not left for him, which is just a completely backwards way of looking at the situation. But of course, the big point they make is, that it's not the old ways. This is the way the world's changing now, and to move into a more efficient means.
And also Arthur is a super emotional person, right?
Yeah.
So he gets really emotional about things.
Everything's dictated on his emotions. He overreacts. He jumps to conclusions. It's all based on how he's feeling in that particular moment.
Right, exactly.
It's what made him, even as the oldest brother, it made him not suitable to run the Peaky Blinders, whereas Tommy was.
Tommy was, right. Because Tommy isn't ruled by his emotions in the way Arthur is.
He can be influenced by it. And we saw a scene from that related to it because he had an encounter again with the union woman who he talked to because he thinks that somebody in the Communist Party connected to the unions is working for the Italians and opened up the door, grabbed the keys, and opened up the door that allowed Arthur to be attacked in this episode. Arthur got through it fine and killed the two that came after him. But in doing so, the whole situation is now okay, well, how were we exposed? How was this door unlocked and left open?
Somebody unlocked the door, right?
Yeah. And so initially they come to the conclusion that it must be this one guy that works for him. He had other suspicious activities related to him, like moving his family away and wanting to catch a midnight train out of town. He is confronted about that and he's like, no, I didn't do anything to betray you. The reason I'm trying to get out of town is because of all this craziness going on.
Right.
With you and the Italians. He's like, I'm scared to death and I just want to protect my family and get out of here.
Well, he claims he's just scared and he's trying to leave and somebody else must have grabbed the keys from his office, which he left unlocked in his hurry to leave. And
because he was, he needed to address an issue at the factory, which is that they were trying to use the paint to set a fire. Some of the people that are on strike, apparently. And so in his panic to do that and to try to get basically Arthur's attention, which we saw that scene, but not in that context before,
right,
where the guy was running to get Arthur and talking about how it was an issue and Arthur was too busy fucking his wife in the office.
Yeah.
In her Japanese soap.
And that was a ruse where she was trying to stop him from attending that meeting. meeting where he was going to put himself up there to be the one to do the honors of shooting the mob leader.
Mm-hmm.
And
but all of this leads to, like we're saying, in the context of where we're going, so that we're not running off the point, is that Tommy has this moment with the union woman.
Yes.
And he's talking to her, and she has done her research on him. And she knows a fellow Communist Party member who is the sister of an old girlfriend he had back before he had left for war.
Right.
And tells a sad story about how she had gotten sick and wasted away and died, and how he had sat by her bedside for months while she died, and how like he was a completely different person, and then he went away to war, and that innocent boy never returned.
Yeah,
and, he says nobody came back.
Yeah, he said nobody came back from that. And that's true because, in every time he's described the war, he's always described it as probably the most horrifying event of his life, and just as a completely life-changing and transformative event for him, going to war, World War One.
And he came back as this hardened, cruel man, very different from the boy who left. But it goes into how Tommy can be affected by emotion, but not in a way in which he loses his head. Because here we see Tommy having had this encounter, he goes and he revisits this location where he used to meet this girl, and he ends up having sex with his prostitute assistant there, which I thought initially, and maybe it still is to some extent the case, that he was doing it to kind of like overwrite his memories of her to get past it, so he wouldn't have to think about her. Like it's almost like he's tainting the memory of this innocent memory by having sex with a former prostitute, like in that location. But at the same time, once he's done with that, he's basically like, orders her like, I'm putting you in charge of a project. I want to increase our philanthropy efforts. I want to purchase these 2 buildings that we're going to be using for destitute children and, to help them. And when he's asked why he did that, he said he had made a promise that he was going to change the world. So this is like how Tommy's dealing with this like past side of him that's now gone, is that he's still kind of honoring it. He's taking it a moment and taking time and money from himself in order to do that. But at the same time, he's kind of like overriding his memories of the source. It's kind of like he's putting it to bed. This is like an open wound for him that's like been there and hasn't been addressed. And this woman, this union worker, opened it up for him, and he's just like resealed it.
Right.
At least that's how I read it. I guess I was wrong with what I thought was happening last week when we talked about it with the strike, because my big theory with the strike was that he did that intentionally to free up workers that he could use as his soldiers, but that doesn't seem to be the case with the way the story's progressing in this episode.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be the way the story's progressing at all.
Unless there's still something we don't know that they're like holding back as like a surprise.
Could be.
It almost seems like Tommy just did something kind of like out of nowhere for no reason. Like his whole like calling the bluff on the strike thing is just seems like horribly timed now, if there's no other strategy behind it.
Right.
Which I guess goes against what I was saying about Tommy not being ruled by his emotions, if that's the case.
I guess so, yeah.
So what I'm saying here is I have a deep understanding of Peaky Blinders that allows me to get everything wrong about Peaky Blinders.
There you go. Absolutely.
There's an element of thirsty woman in this episode. A lot of horny women.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Led directly with Polly talking to Ada and saying, when was the last time you were fucked?
Yeah, right.
Like cutting right to the chase. And then like immediately, like every moment with Polly after that looks like she's like looking to get fucked. You see her like she sits down, it's like she's looking at the person that's helping her into the car. She's looking like it just seems like everywhere she's looking and she's looking with thirsty eyes, which is kind of funny. And then that paralleled of course with Arthur's wife and her new thirsty vibe that she used as a ruse to try to Arthur was going to do and his future path, I guess. And so she was using her wiles to influence that.
Sure.
So it kind of like had like this theme of that, like where it was showing that. And that ultimately led to a scene at the end of the episode with Polly talking to some credit to Adrian Brody's character.
This was like some shit, right? This was some shit.
Basically to betray Tommy, to say...
Yeah, basically to betray Tommy, it's crazy.
Completely sell him out in favor of mainly protecting her son, but also Arthur and as well.
Yeah. She just wants Tommy dead. She's still super salty over the execution thing. It's like...
Notice she never mentioned Ada.
That's true.
Ada's one of his targets too. I think that was implied, but even still.
Maybe she, yeah. Well, it shows Polly's not overly fond of Ada either. You know, but yeah.
How much do you buy this confrontation, though? Because, I mean, clearly at the end of the episode, Adrian Brody's character isn't really taking what she's saying as, like, as gospel, you know?
He'd be smart not to, you know?
He basically said, like, it's a shame you don't like dancing because you're dancing with me now. He said kind of like under her breath as she walked away.
Yeah, he said under his breath as she walked away, right? Yeah, so...
Do you buy that? Do you think she's trying to play part of a plan against Adrian Brody's character, or do you think that she is legit selling out Tommy?
I don't know.
Or do you think it's somewhere in between?
It could be somewhere in between.
It's interesting because they've kind of gone over like the different strategies of how the Italians can go after the Peaky Blinders and how the Peaky Blinders can go after the Italians. Like throughout this episode, they've been showing like a back and forth in that regards. You know, they talked about how the Italians are trying to fit in, but they don't really fit in because they just hate the food. And they're dressed like, you know, Italian mobsters, and they're not, you know, so they're not fitting in, so they just stand out so they can be seen a mile away. So when they went to attack Arthur, it's like Arthur could like see like, what the fuck are you guys doing here? Instead of being shot and killed, he like knows to run, you know?
Right, exactly.
So this is like worked out against the Italians, and so he's talking about how Adrian Brody's character is telling them, you know, shut your damn mouth about the food, you know, who gives a shit if you don't like the food? Eat the fucking food anyways, get this done with, and then we can go back and get good food. Sure. So you kind of like, you're seeing these different sides of strategies and how they're approaching that, because then they drop the intelligence on Adrian Brody's character that there's a woman who, Arthur killed it's her son, right? Or was it her husband? I think it was her son.
Her son, I think.
Yeah, in a boxing ring. I think that was in season 1, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was season 1, yeah.
Where that was like when we were starting to learn that Arthur was like, something was wrong with him. That he was like a total hothead and couldn't control his temper and stuff and can kind of keep himself in check. Where he was boxing with somebody, lost his mind and just murdered him in the ring, and that they've been taking care of them since. And now the Italians are talking about how there's a lot of people that hate the Shelbys for similar reasons.
Oh yeah, they got a lot of enemies. That was the point. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is like, you wronged these people. So now you basically, they're like a source that could be used against you. They talked about, how she might be able to lure some of the Shelbys to her house by saying that there was something she needed, and then they'd go there, and then that could be a setup.
Right. Exactly.
On the other side, you have the Shelbys were able to get information from like a wedding photographer in New York, you know, that from a family wedding from the Italians, the Sincretis, and was able to get basically photographs of all of them.
Right.
And say like, okay, these are our targets. And specifically Tommy pointing out the leader, you know, and saying this is who I spoke to. This is who's in charge.
Right.
That we need to get. And that's what they're able to use to source that material out to, Mr. Gold and others to kind of keep a lookout for him or a hit directly on him by using this information. So it's kind of like this episode's kind of been like people slowly playing out their war plans.
Right. Yeah.
I'd say like the one big weakness for me is that it seemed like there were many opportunities where one side or the other could have made a pretty significant hit, like a dent into. Yeah. And right. It just didn't happen. Like didn't even attempt to happen. And like the attack on Arthur, it's like, was that really like an attempt to kill him, or was it just like an opportunistic thing? No, it was a legit plan to kill Arthur in that moment.
It was legit.
Which is so foully conceived, you know, so poorly conceived as a strategy to use against him, you know, that like, oh, not only did they miss their opportunity to take him out, but they blew it. They exposed like a weakness that they were exploiting that the Shelbys can now cover up and fix. It seems like neither side is really good at exacting vengeance on the other.
Right.
That's been kind of my negative takeaway on this episode. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so.
It's like we just kind of want to see real games at play now, I think. You know, it's it's interesting watching the characters talk about how they're going to use one thing against somebody and one thing against another person, but
right,
you know,
I agree.
If Polly had taken out this guy when she had encountered him at this bar, if she had like poisoned his drink or did something or just killed him right there, where she's in an area where she's more protected than he is because it's her home turf.
Like does she want to?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like she's supposedly turning on Tommy because like she doesn't think that they could win against the Italians. That's like the premise that's being put in front of us.
Is that the reason?
That's what I think they're presenting. That's what they're trying to get us to believe.
That's the reason she's turning on Tommy. She's bitter about the execution. That's the reason she's turning on Tommy.
That's playing a part, but I think it's more like she just doesn't care. Like it's in her machinations that she doesn't care about Tommy like she does for the other people.
Right.
I don't think that she's directly turning on him for that reason. She's just not including him in the deal, basically, because who would take that deal anyways? Their plan is to go after the entire family. Okay, here, I'll give you this one person, and and you have to let everybody else in the family go. It's like this conceit that in itself, you know? But I think her main intention is that she can't see a way in which they're going to beat the Italians without taking significant losses.
Right.
But it seems like the Italians are all fucking morons except for this one guy. So you think that it would be kind of like a great opportunity to take him out. On the flip side, like the Italians seem to not give a shit about Polly's plan to turn it into just Tommy. Like they really want to go after all of them. They want to kill all of them. So why in the hell would he let her walk away and just go? You know, he doesn't seem like he's taking her up on the deal. Like it's just kind of, I don't know. I kind of had like negative feelings about this episode overall is what I'm saying.
Right.
Anything else happen in this episode?
Nope, that's it. We can move on.
Yeah, let's move on then. Let's talk about The Magicians, Season 3, Episode 3, The Losses of Magic, in which, spoiler alert, we lose 2 characters, supposedly.
Or do we?
Dun, dun. Or do we? She kind of had a few different parallel stories going on here. One is that in the last episode, we saw that Quentin was taken over by the Lamprey.
Yep, happened at the end of the last episode. So we know what's going on with Quentin going into this episode. You also know
Quentin is immediately over at Alice's parents' house where Alice had gone because she's trying to figure out, she's kind of like in this last position where she wants to protect herself and her family from the Lamprey, thinking that they could go after either of them or both of them. And she's kind of at her wit's end, needing protection. So she finally goes to her family after never visiting them after being resurrected. They're not shocked that she's alive because Quentin already told them. They're just like passive aggressive about the fact that she hasn't come to visit them.
Yeah, Mom is like super passive aggressive, you know. She is like super upset and angry. The dad's a little more understanding of the situation. She gets there, you know. It's a lot of family drama in this part of the show, really, because mostly from the mother, you know, but the Lamprey's loose. Quentin shows up and he's got the Lamprey in him.
And that's exposed so quickly.
That's exposed so, it doesn't even it doesn't end up even being a thing because it's exposed right away and then
just the father's like, what's up with your neck? And he's like, what? Something's up with my neck? And then
like, he just like runs away. He runs away and then the next time you see Quentin, the Lamprey is no longer in him. So
it's just without a slime trail leading from his body where he's like,
you know, without anybody having done anything except notice. So yeah, so that was a bit anticlimactic. I thought I was like, okay, the whole thing about Quentin having the Lamprey didn't seem to go anywhere.
The Lamprey thing in general didn't really do too terribly much.
Right.
I mean, they added like a sad note for the Lamprey's cause, you know? And then they also added a sad note as like a last fuck you to Alice from the Lamprey at the end. But overall, I mean, like the way the Lamprey was talked about last season after they lost their magic, it was like, holy shit, Lamprey. Oh my God.
Built it up and it's like, oh, it's this worm thing that you can just kill by electrocuting it. Like, okay, well, they built it up as like this super powerful entity, and it's like, oh, like, because they were kind of like, wait, oh, you don't have magic, you're fucked. You're fucked. And it's like, oh, wait, I got a car battery. Never mind, not fucked anymore. It's like,
so now I have the overwhelming advantage, a car battery.
The Lamprey, that can't be killed except with magic. Or
a car battery.
Or actually you could poke it with a soft pillow and kill it. Yeah,
just lock it in the car and leave it out in the hot California sun.
It's like,
that's bad. But
they do like the thing where the whole Lamprey thing is just an excuse really to get Alice back with her family and have this family drama happen. That seems to be the only excuse for a Lamprey storyline, and the payoff of that is basically the Lamprey ends up being in Alice's dad, and the Lamprey mentions that he has a weak heart, so if Alice electrocutes him, you know, she could potentially kill him. She electrocutes him anyway to get the Lamprey out, and she manages to kill it. And at first it seems like her dad's going to be fine, And so we're kind of like looking at a happy ending of it. And then her dad does go into cardiac arrest and dies.
Yeah.
And that's really the big payoff for that storyline right there.
Yeah, and it's kind of a quick end. It's kind of weird. This is kind of like a thing I like and dislike about the Magicians, is that they managed to kind of insert a lot of humor into the situation and the confrontation with the Lamprey, with Quentin and Alice being wrapped in saran wrap and stuff. Is funny.
Because apparently it can enter through your skin pores as well.
Yeah, but they do all this to kind of like create this implication. They also were able to get like a lot of emotion in favor of the Lamprey, with talking about how Niffin Alice was like torturing and killing the Lamprey's family just because they looked pretty when they died.
Right. And we knew
they were not pretty lights. And so you have this kind of sad moment from that.
Yeah,
and there is a payoff with some stakes with her dad ending up dying at the end. But just in general, it's just like, oh man, they just wiped out a character in such an anticlimactic way, or not meaning the father, but the Lamprey as this like threatening figure. And it's kind of the same thing kind of happened last season with, the Beast getting killed off so quickly.
It does, yeah.
Like, he wasn't around that long, and then he was taken out, and then like it was like, okay, this menacing figure that was so interesting. It's like, oh yeah, well, he's just gone, and in a very anticlimactic way as well.
In the matter of an episode, in a very anticlimactic way. The show has a habit of doing that, right?
Yeah. It's like, but strangely, it doesn't hit me so negatively, just because I think a lot of what I like about the Magicians is just kind of like the humor and the kind of like, the kind of moments with the characters, and that's all still there.
Yeah. So the other storyline is, of course, the continuing storyline of Elliot and Margot in Fillory. As, they try to rule Fillory with the fairies over their shoulder. And we know from last episode, Elliot went to an island in his living ship and he got a key. Mm-hmm. And basically he's coming back to the mainland with the key. When
they were looking for another island too along the way.
Oh yeah, they were looking for another island.
They mentioned that the maps, like, it isn't charted because the islands move, because Fillory.
Oh yeah, that's right. But anyway, they're ambushed by pirates.
And Elliot quickly makes a getaway when he notices a keyhole that just suddenly appears in this boat.
Yeah.
Uses the key, it opens up a door, he leaves. So when Margot gets word that that this has happened, she goes and visits the fairy queen and ends up getting the queen's favor to help her get there, just because Margot's able to make the case that if you want to rule Fillory, like, in everything but name, just over our shoulder, well, then it doesn't really help your cause that people think they can just walk all over us and can take whatever they want, and then you're left with nothing because of it, like it works in your favor to help us here.
Right.
And because of that, is able to get the fairy to bring her to the boat. She parlays with the pirates, has a little bit of a lesbian chat off with the leader of the pirates.
Yes.
Basically finds out that in order for them to have any negotiations at all, the pirates, like, their boat is alive like the other boat is, and it wants to fuck their boat. That's basically what brought them there. And they're like, well, we can't leave until our boat gets off.
So basically, they say, oh, it's not going to be consensual, so it's going to be like boat rape.
Yeah. Talking about basically how, and afterwards the boats are never the same, and they just go off and basically stop working as working boats. And Margot is able to kind of realize that it sounds like PTSD. It sounds like what happens to a woman after she's been raped,
Right.
And so she realizes this, and she goes to the core of the boat and is like, basically presents the problem to the boat and is asking the boat for what the boat wants, saying like, well, what do you want? How do we play this out? I could order you to do this, but I don't want to do that. It doesn't feel right. So how do I get through this? What do you want to do? It's kind of like leaving that up to the boat. She goes off. We find out that, the fairy queen was watching the whole time, was moved by her speech in favor of the boat, and in doing so just murdered all the pirates.
Yeah, she just murders all the pirates.
Problem solved.
Yeah, problem solved. Yeah, right.
It's also worth noting in this scene that one of the attendants to the royalty of Fillory offers to pickpocket the fairy queen of the eye and give it back to Margot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This doesn't escape. They're planning on basically blaming the pirates on this later.
Right. It doesn't
escape. Yeah, it doesn't escape the fairy queen's notice. She realizes it's been stolen from her. She asks which one stole it. Margot takes responsibility, but because nobody steps forward, the fairy queen basically gets the wrong one. one, the wrong attendant.
Yes.
And puts a song he hates in his head that's going to play forever and slowly drive him
mad. Drive him insane.
And, and then she goes to Margot and says the eye, and Margot crushes her own eyeball.
Right.
And the Fairy Queen's like, well, I can't fix that. Like, that can't be fixed back now. And Margot's like, well, at least you can't spy on me. And she's like, well, I have tons of ways of spying on you.
Yeah, I have tons
like, this is just one. So it's a little bit of a sad moment there. I think that the Fairy Queen is being a little bit disingenuous in the fact that she has tons of ways of spying, because that was clearly established in the first episode of the season that she was relying fairly heavily on that eye.
She was, yeah.
And it's used to spy on her, and Elliot and Margot had to find some clever ways around that. But what's interesting here is just how Elliot just kind of took off through the store we have no idea where.
He just disappears for the rest of the episode. We don't know.
With his daughter and his wife, and left one of his attendants to pretend to be him.
Exactly, yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of the storyline there. There's kind of one other storyline going on in this episode, one that also has a death, or does it?
Well, Penny is dying, right?
Yes.
Yes.
He's got super cancer.
He's got cancer plus.
And, Penny's girlfriend, can't think of her name right now. I know it has a D in it. That's in the middle of the name. That's all I can remember. Anyways, she successfully convinces Julia to help her summon a demon.
Who can help.
You think Julia would be a little bit more cautious here?
Well,
summoning hasn't worked out that well for her.
Julia would, but she explains to Julia that she would be more cautious except Penny is dying.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's Katie is Penny's girlfriend.
Yeah. Katie says,
that she would be more cautious except she's dying. What I'm saying though is I think Julia would be more cautious than to be involved in another summoning.
Well, Julia feels obligated to help Katie.
She feels obligated to help, but at the same time it's like, wow, after her last experience with a big summoning,
Right.
Not exactly what I'd want to be doing again. But, I guess they're doing a demon instead of a god. This seems to kind of work out much more in their favor at first because the demon's not really acting crazy or like trying to like put demands on them so much. It's like the demon just wants to eat the cancer. It's like it's food.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's like, no problem. I'll eat the food, He's all, this is gonna hurt. He starts going in. Penny's like screaming, and then like he astral projects out of him.
Penny astral projects out of his body, right?
And Penny's like, what? It hurt, and Demon's like, no shame.
Yeah, no shame. So
goes back to trying to rip out the cancer to eat it.
The demon extracts the cancer, and he says, this is particularly juicy. I'm going to save it for later. And almost right away, Penny dies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he gives 1 second to say, take him time to heal, and whoops, nope, he's dead. And so
it's too late. And so Penny dies, and now he's astral projected out, though.
Astral projected outside of his body, so technically he's still alive. He still exists.
But nobody can see him or hear him or...
Right, nobody. He's essentially a ghost at this point.
So this is kind of like Penny's role in the season now.
That's where the episode ends.
Yeah. So what did you think of this episode in the season and just like this point of the progression of the season? So
I thought it was okay. The Lamprey stuff was kind of lame and
a little disappointing after all the build-up.
There wasn't like a lot of plot progression, except I think the Penny storyline was the best. It seems to be more interesting. I'd like to know where Elliot ended up. Because so overall I didn't care about the pirate stuff. I didn't care about the Lamprey stuff, and that was like
the pirate stuff could have been more interesting, but like they ended it very quickly.
They ended it very quickly. They just didn't do anything interesting with it. They were there and then the fairies killed them and it's like, okay. But the
idea of boat rape was interesting, but
yeah, it's okay. Just overall, it was a weak episode, I thought.
Yeah, I feel about the same. I still enjoyed it. I still thought it was a fun watch. That's the thing about The Magicians is that even when like the plot's not really necessarily working out in the best way, there's usually just enough humor and adventure to make it fun to watch anyways.
Right, yeah, that's true.
Enough interesting concepts like boat rape to keep it like thought-provoking in some manner or another. So it turned out to be okay to watch. I just really kind of feel like, man, they really dropped the ball on the whole Lamprey thing.
Right.
We were kind of expecting this to be like this huge, significant threat,
And it wasn't.
It was a slug.
Yeah, slug. That's it.
let's move on then to Black Mirror. We're going to be talking about your favorite episode of the series. Season 4, episode 3, Crocodile. Not even kidding. I actually quite like this episode. Probably for the exact same reason you hated it.
This episode, a woman becomes a serial killer and there's like zero consequences practically.
Well, I mean, it ends with the implication.
Throw in like some weak concession at the end that doesn't make up for anything that you just watched. So it's like, okay.
So every like step she took to evade, like everything she did that basically turned her basically from being a killer that was by accident at the beginning, or being involved in a killing that was an accident at the beginning, to being like just a cold-blooded serial killer. Everything that occurred that she did that kind of took her down that path and just kept getting worse and worse and worse as she progressed. Right. Ended up being for naught at the end. That's I think the kind of, so there is justice. It's just that we don't see it directly. We just know it happens.
There's no catharsis there then.
But that's what Black Mirror is like, you know? That's Black Mirror.
I think that's one of the reasons why this doesn't work so well, is because you don't get any catharsis in this episode. You don't. And that left me walk away pissed off for days. So it's like, okay, you want to piss people off. Congratulations, I guess. Next time, try writing a good story.
For me, Black Mirror is all about the gut punch. It's all about that moment, like, you know, where in this case, it's all for naught moment. It's the moment in which we as the audience really realize that everything she did to kind of cover up her crime is for naught. Like it was all lost. Like, you know, she's getting caught anyway. So basically everybody that died in her cover up died for nothing.
I could have predicted that from, like, you know, the beginning of the episode. It's like
well, no, it's not a twist. It's just the execution of the fact that it ended up being all for naught. So I like that because I like that tone in Black Mirror. I like when Black Mirror hits you with like that moment where that gut punch. You know, that's what I like about Black Mirror. It was in the first episode. It was the pig. You know, it was like, oh, he does have to fuck the pig. You know,
we have this woman, right, and she's with this guy, and they accidentally run over somebody and kill him. She's conflicted what to do. He suggests that they cover it up, they get rid of the body, and it's like, okay.
She wants to initially turn themselves in, and he is against it because he's like, it's my life that's on line. He's like, I was the one driving.
Yeah, he's against it. Well,
I'm under the influence.
Whatever the reasons, like, you know, they cover it up, right? And so that comes back into play later. She is now like this really successful architect somehow. I don't even like freaking know, like,
she was able to pull her life together. It could be argued that moment, the influence it had on their different lives, that it had this opposite reaction on their two lives. That for her boyfriend, who wanted to cover it up, it basically ruined him. Right. It like left him a wreck, unable to function in society, until he finally decided that, you know, without getting too far ahead of ourselves, that he wanted to come clean about his involvement and get it over with because he couldn't live with himself. For her, the one that was initially wanting to go to the police and turn themselves in, it had the opposite effect. It gave her that motivating factor to turn her life around and make something of herself. So she did. She made something of herself. She became a successful architect. She stopped the hard partying lifestyle. She has a family. She has a child.
So basically her murder spree begins when he shows up. He resurfaces and he tells her that he's going to go to the authorities about what happened and own up because he's filled with guilt over it, you know.
Yeah, he can't live with himself.
He can't live with himself. And this, you know, since she has this perfect life now she's trying to protect, she ends up killing him to prevent him from talking and ruining her life. And so she has to get rid of him. It turns out that as she's murdering this guy, there's a minor accident outside her hotel room.
And a self-driving pizza delivery truck hits a drunk guy that was walking across the street.
Investigator, and the big thing with this episode is she has tech that, you know, she can see people's memories through this machine. Right. So she's going around interviewing people who were around the scene, who might have seen the accident, you know,
she's basically doing like memory triangulation.
Something like that.
Like she's narrowing in on the most accurate information by like finding somebody on the scene, seeing through their eyes and what they saw, going like, oh, through their eyes, I'm able to see that there's this other witness, then finding that witness and kind of doing that is like triangulating in.
It's actually not even important how the technology works because that never factors into the plot. Like the specific way the technology works never factors into the plot one iota.
Well, it doesn't in how they find her.
That's really stupid. I'm just gonna say, oh no,
I disagree on that because I actually really dug.
I mistook what you were referencing. Never mind. No, you're right that it does in how they find her, because they find her through this other guy, right, who is looking out the window at this man. But they find her, right? The insurance investigator finds her.
It's kind of a play on like the idea of a surveillance state and like taking that up another level. That's like the tech angle of the episode. Like every Black Mirror episode has some kind of a tech angle. This is it. It's the idea of a surveillance state and the idea that like even what we see in our memories can be mined as surveillance. I'm gonna get
to what I thought was stupid, but she interviews this woman and she sees the murder. Mm-hmm. In her machine, and we get like this kind of dumb moment where she does the smart thing. She doesn't tell her what she says. She just tries to get out of there, and she gets in her car. And
the promise she can't keep the emotion completely out of her face. Yeah,
right. And she follows her. She's nervous now because she knows that the insurance investigator knows she's following her out the door. And then we have a stupid, dumb horror movie moment where the car suddenly doesn't work at the most inconvenient time because plot reasons. Like
they're in Iceland.
It's not realistic that her car would randomly stop working at that exact moment.
They're in Iceland. It's the cold weather.
It's a dumb horror movie trope they threw in there. I mean, I'm gonna point it out and I'm gonna mock it. I don't care.
I'll concede that, but I don't think it's necessarily. I think it's something you see all the time, even in good stuff. Right. So I don't necessarily think it's like. I don't think that diminishes the episode in particular. I think what you have an issue with goes beyond that.
Oh, it goes beyond that. Yeah. But and then this is where because this is where the episode started to piss me off, because it's like, okay, she's got this insurance investigator tied up and she's going to kill her. And I'm just like, okay, well, a shoe has to drop here somewhere, right? Something's got to give. And no, she finds out about her family about her husband actually, by using her technology against her. And then she murders her flat out. And then she goes to murder her husband. And you're like, well, something's got to give, something's got to. No, it doesn't. She murders her husband. Then she murders her fucking baby. And at that point, I'm fucking livid, right? I'm just livid at that point, because I was just beyond the pale. And then the episode ends, she goes to her kid's play, and then the police show up, and then credits. And after she murders a baby. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just watch?
There is justice served, because the police being there in that moment, and she sees them, so she knows it's over. They don't go to the scene of her actually being arrested.
Right, they don't go to the scene of her actually being arrested. But
it's not like there's an empty thread of like, oh, what happens next? We know exactly what happens next.
We know what happens next.
She gets arrested, she's tried, they have plenty of evidence to use against her, and
this brings me to the part that, like, the thing that I said was stupid is like, they catch her because they pulled memories from a fucking gerbil or whatever, and I'm like, wait, and I'm just like trying to think out logically. I'm like, okay, how? Like, because every other time she's used this technology, she's had to give the person a bottle of beer to get them to kind of visualize where they were to get the memory to come up, and to get that, you can't tell a gerbil to freaking visualize what it saw.
I can agree with that. Interesting fact though, this is right off of a Google search here. Gerbils only have a memory span of about 72 hours, but maintain a long-term memory, such as who their cage mate is and who you are.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a little gerbil memory factoid.
Little gerbil memory factoid. But the fact that they had to coax the memory out of people, and I don't know how they managed to do that.
I can agree that isn't necessarily great. They did like a last-second twist in which you find out also that she killed the baby for no reason as well, beyond the fact that she ended up getting caught because of the gerbil, because the baby was born blind.
Yeah, that's just, come on. Oh, that is just awful. I did not like this. I did not like this at all. Left me feeling bad. Left me feeling angry.
To me, that's like half of what Black Mirror should be, though.
I couldn't even.
I can agree with you.
What the point? What was the message that it was even trying to convey? You murder a bunch of people and you're going to jail? Well,
I don't think Black Mirror is about moral lessons at all. Anyways.
Right. Oh, you don't think?
Right off the bat, I don't think it's about moral lessons. I think it's about moral quandaries.
Not moral lessons.
But it's not like
maybe like, what's
it's
the
never
message
like,
that's being conveyed?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean though. It's like, I don't think Black Mirror is out to like leave a message to say, you know, like, and the moral of the story is like, I don't think that that's Black Mirror at all. Like, I don't think that that's what Black Mirror, I think that's almost the opposite of what Black Mirror is trying to. Like, Black Mirror is trying to present like a moral quandary. They're trying to say like, okay, you have this technology. It exists. It's in society for long enough that it's no longer alien to us. Now, what are the side effects of that technology? Like, how does that affect society when we've taken like a crazy technology, like being able to, you know, observe someone's memories and make it something that's just not alien to society anymore? Like, what happens to society at that point? And so in this story, it's basically that the idea of a surveillance state. It's the idea of like, when she doesn't want to, like, she's like, I don't have time for this. And she's like, well, actually, you know, according to the government, you have to comply on insurance claims for this, you know, and it's that idea of like, well, it's inescapable. Like, you can't escape a crime. And the episode is titled Crocodile, I think, for a reason. And that's because what is a crocodile? A crocodile is literally a cold-blooded killer.
Well, yeah.
It's a term, it's a term used often to describe serial killers, and
I got that
you know,
reference.
but I mean, they'll specifically use the word crocodile to refer to like serial killers and stuff. They use that term because it means cold-blooded killer. It's somebody that hunts without any compassion at all, you know, like,
right. I mean, I got that. I just didn't think it was going to be like just this woman committing a series of murders until she's caught at the last like 1 minute of running time.
See, here's the thing. Like, I agree to the conceit that like there are definite issues with the way this was put together and the way this was handled. I think that, you know, the twist that the kid was blind the whole time was a big gut punch.
Right.
It achieved what it needed to. I think the gerbil thing was a bit iffy. Like, I think it almost would have been more interesting if the thing that caught her at the end wasn't like the gerbil's memory, but like some piece of like old tech that like that people wouldn't even worry about in the context. That would have been like, more. There was literally a camcorder that was on.
Yeah,
you know, like a nanny cam or something. I think that kind of would have been a little bit more interesting because it would have like brought it back into it. So there are issues, you know, like I can agree with you that kind of like, you know, how do you coax a memory from a gerbil kind of thing? You know, I agree with that. But I think a lot of what you didn't like about it was just the fact that you didn't get the catharsis of justice.
Right.
To me, like, I never need that in Black Mirror. Like I like the gut punch in Black Mirror. It's one of the things I like about it.
You like it when Black Mirror like abuses you.
Exactly. I'm a masochist for Black Mirror. I like that uncomfortable feeling. Like I talked about, the very first episode of Black Mirror basically comes down to a prime minister fucking a pig. And the whole build up to that was like, how do you get out of this? How do you not do it? Like, that's the entire episode basically, is how do you not do this?
And then
like, how do you get into the situation and not do it? And they cover every single step of how you can get away with it. None of it works. In the end, he fucks the pig.
Yeah.
He has to fuck the pig. And the effect on that afterwards is just that feeling of like, okay, yeah, he's still a politician. He's still in office. He ended up doing the thing to save somebody. People understood that, you know, so he's respected. So he's like cutting, you know, a ribbon at like, you know, some thing for some event or whatever, like a charity thing. And his wife, you know, behind the scenes afterwards, his wife, you see that his marriage is now a shell. Like, his wife just can't stand to be around him. So she acts like the lovely wife in public, but behind the scenes where she actually was loving, there's just nothing there now. And he's haunted by the fact that he's done this. And the people of the country have all been kind of demoralized by this, where they were all excited at the prospect of like, oh, is he actually going to do it? Now it's like, it's kind of like a shame on their country. Right. Almost as if they elected some cheetah with a comb over.
Didn't they like base that episode off of a story about David Cameron?
Well, see, the thing is there wasn't a story about David Cameron. That came out after.
Oh.
So it was another example of Black Mirror being prescient.
Yeah, a weird example, a weird thing to be prescient about.
But yeah, to me, like, that's kind of what Black Mirror is about to me. Like, that's the thing that establishes is it's like, it shows you a situation, it gives you so many outs in that situation, but then shows you how none of them work. And then the gut punch is you knew this was going to happen, that this was what was supposed to happen all along, and it happens. And the gut punch is the fact that you kept believing that there was an out.
Yeah.
And there wasn't.
And there wasn't, right.
And so that's the gut punch that, like, Black Mirror, that's what I love about Black Mirror, is that that feeling that gives you. And it's oftentimes uncomfortable, but it's like, it leaves you thinking and it sticks with you. And sometimes it's more emotional, and sometimes it's darker and more depressing. Sometimes it's something that you can even kind of cope with in a better way, you know, and actually come away kind of almost with a smile on your face at the end. In the case of something like, you know, the next episode we're going to talk about, or like San Junipero, where there's kind of like the gut punch isn't that hard, but there's still like this feeling that it's still kind of there, like the same kind of thing is somewhat there, but it's not as hard of a gut punch. Or like the second episode of Black Mirror, 15 Million Merits, which is by far my favorite episode of the whole series, which ends like on a dark note, but also like it doesn't feel like it betrays itself as it's just, you know, this is just like the tone of Black Mirror to me, at least.
Right.
That I like. So I don't, that aspect that really made you so angry is like the part of the episode I actually liked the most, I think. But how it got there, the flaws that you pointed out, like the gerbil memory and stuff, I completely agree with. That's a flaw of the episode.
Right, right.
But it's interesting. I mean, this is like a good thing to talk about, because Black Mirror is one of those things where you and I, if a lot of people listen to the podcast with you and I, they probably come away going like, oh man, they just agree with everything. They just sit there and talk about how great Hannibal is. But when it comes to Black Mirror, you and I have very different opinions.
Yeah, we do. We have very different opinions. Like I don't know. I don't try to be so. I just speak my mind about things, you know. Like, and
yeah, it just happens that we normally align on the other things.
Yeah, it just happens we normally align on the other things. The fact is, like, we typically watch what we enjoy, and we tend to agree, like, most of the time on stuff that we both watch. There are things like where like that you watch that I don't watch, and you know, there's differences there. But yeah, I guess it is very rare that we disagree. But Black Mirror is like one of those things that we constantly disagree on, and that's just because I guess we get different things out of it.
Yeah, you know? But oddly enough, we both still like the show.
Yeah,
we just disagree on what aspects we like and dislike. You know,
right? Exactly.
Which makes it interesting.
Like I liked McAllister, and then you were saying, "Oh, I didn't like that one too much," and I'm just like, "Why? It was great. There's interesting stuff going on, and it was a good thriller in its own right."
Yeah, and we're gonna face that. I have a feeling. My guess is that we'll face that a little bit in the next episode too, which I did like. But again, like I don't know, like it a little like San Junipero before it. Even though I acknowledge it's good and I do like it, there's a part of me that hates it.
By the way, you are in the minority about San Junipero. By the way,
well, like I said, I do like San Junipero. I do like the episode. There's just a part of me that hates it.
Like I think
because it doesn't feel like Black Mirror.
I think Black Mirror was nominated for
yeah. It's like the only time it's been nominated, and it won awards. I know for the episode
was for San Junipero. So like you are really in the minority on that opinion.
to some accounts, but there's other people that believe me on that. Because the thing is, like, if it was just a 1 hour movie that Netflix put out that Charlie Brooker made, and it was just called San Junipero, that part of me that, I said, it's only a part of me that hates it. That wouldn't exist.
That part wouldn't exist. But since
it's just that this is Black Mirror. Like, and I watched it, and I'm like, there's part of my brain that's just like, no, this isn't Black Mirror. You know? It's like going to see Metallica and watching them play a country song. You know, it's like, no.
Like, it's like the greatest country song ever made too.
Yeah, and you can even like that country song, but it's just like, no, this isn't Metallica. You know, that's kind of like how I react to San Junipero and the episode we're going to be talking about next week. Both episodes I liked, by the way. Like I'll say that, but just
are we going to agree on that episode?
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see next week.
Can you guess my opinion?
My opinion is we're going to disagree. But I have no idea to back that up. We haven't talked about this episode yet. So
find out.
That'll be next week's episode. We're going to be talking about Hang the DJ is what we're talking about. Season 4, episode 4. We're going to be talking about episode 4s of all of these seasons, these 3 shows.
Yes.
Next week. So tune in for that. It's almost, we're almost through 2 of these shows, by the way. So
we're halfway.
We're like at the halfway point. Yeah.
Yeah. With
the exception being The Magicians, which will go on for, I think, 13 episodes or something, or 10, something like that. It's got a ways longer to go, but But yeah, so until next week, when we talk about those shows, here's what's coming up in the next week. So by the time this podcast is available, Friday, January 26, 2018, Jane the Virgin is back on the CW. Amazon's got 2 shows, Breathe and Britannia, coming to Amazon. One Day at a Time is back on Netflix. Then on Saturday, January 27, 2018, Conan Without Borders, Haiti airs on TVS. So, you want to watch something really topical that's kind of funny, but also is kind of educational, that's going to be something interesting to watch. I'm actually kind of excited. I don't really know much about Haiti, and there's been a lot talked about with Haiti because of, our president, quotation marks, comments.
Rather negative review of Haiti.
Yeah. So I'm kind of actually excited to see this and kind of learn a little bit more about Haiti, with a little bit of comedy thrown in there with Conan. So that's going to be on Saturday. I'm looking forward to that. On Sunday, January 28th, 2018, Netflix continues to be all about international content. They have a new series called El Ministerio del Tiempo, which is a fantasy drama. I have no idea what it's about besides that.
I don't know.
It's interesting how Netflix has so much content that's like original content they're making in different countries now, though,
I was kind of, I don't know why I was surprised, but like, I was kind of like surprised when I started Peaky Blinders and found out that that's a Netflix original, or at least Netflix.
In the US, yeah.
Is producing it in the US, yeah.
This series, I believe, is actually a Netflix original globally. It's just not from America.
Right.
Kind of like Dark, which was like a German series. It's like a Netflix original as well. It's just interesting how we're getting a lot of that now. It's kind of cool that we can get this like stuff from all these different countries. I don't know about you, but like I've always been kind of an Anglophile. I always try to watch like stuff from different countries. Sometimes I've watched a few. It's always really hard to find that shit though.
It is, yeah.
And Netflix and Hulu and these are making it so much easier to get this kind of stuff now. And Netflix in particular, they're not just like going, oh, this is a good show in the UK. Let's throw it on Netflix and everyone in America can watch it. It's not just that. They'll actually front money. They're like actually like creating shows in those countries, which is what's really interesting. Right. So this is just another example of that. Amazon's doing it a little bit too, and so is Hulu, but Netflix seems to be really going into that. Speaking of international content on Netflix, on Tuesday, January 30th, 2018, Babylon Berlin airs on Netflix. It's another German Netflix series. Then on Wednesday, January 31st, 2018, Step Up, High Water, a TV series based on these Step Up dance movies, comes to YouTube Red.
Oh, God. YouTube Red.
There's so many things I don't like in that, but it's just kind of interesting because YouTube Red is pushing into more original content.
YouTube Red is garbage.
I'd agree for the most part. I watched one show I kind of liked on there.
Oh, really?
Which was, it was called Ryan Hansen, I think that's his name.
Oh, yeah,
on TV.
Veronica Mars. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a guy from Veronica Mars, and it's him playing himself, but like working with like the police to solve crimes. And it's kind of ridiculous and it's stupid. It's very meta, but it's pretty funny. But what's interesting though here is that this is like a successful movie franchise, one that I really don't care about, but the fact that it's like being adapted now. But in addition to this, YouTube Red has another one coming later on down the line that's about the Karate Kid.
Yeah,
it's a sequel to the Karate Kid with Daniel San and his nemesis at Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
like as adults.
That. well, that's stupid. Why is that a thing? And I'm like, oh, YouTube Red.
I think it's a comedy, so it's kind of like, I actually think that might actually be a good buddy setup for a buddy comedy kind of thing. Would be kind of funny.
Oh yeah, it might be.
But it comes down to the matter of like, who the fuck has YouTube Red?
Nobody.
I had it and I don't have it anymore. I had it because I had a 3-month free trial. I don't see any reason to really even do that.
Yeah, there's enough content to watch on YouTube without having to subscribe to YouTube Red. That's probably not Netflix.
The one thing I'll give it though is that it was nice not having to sit through commercials on YouTube.
Yeah, I got an ad blocker that does that.
Naughty way. Okay.
Yeah.
Thursday, February 1st, 2018, AP Bio comes to NBC. This is a comedy about a teacher who's teaching AP Bio.
Nice.
It's self-explanatory. Friday, February 2nd, 2018, Strike Back comes back to Cinemax. It's got like new characters and stuff, so I don't know. Did you ever watch Strike Back?
Nope, I don't even have Cinemax, so like I can't watch it.
So Strike Back, do you know anything about it? Have you ever heard about it?
I know like it's an action show, like supposedly reminiscent of like, old school action movies from like the 80s or 90s, like that sort of style.
I wouldn't even say that. I'd say it's almost like Call of Duty the series, except everybody's British.
Oh, okay.
It very much has like that military shooter kind of feel story-wise to it, though, that you'd expect from something like Call of Duty or something in the story for that. Terrorists from different countries, evil companies that are selling arms and then military action around that. That's kind of what Strike Back is. But they've changed the cast a number of times and they're doing it again. So it's coming back, but with like new characters and new stories. Then The Trade is coming to Showtime. 2 Dope Queens debuts on HBO. Absentia on Amazon. But the big series that comes out next week, I don't know if you've heard of this or not, but it looks like a huge production. It's coming to Netflix. It's called Altered Carbon. Have you heard of this at all?
No.
So Altered Carbon is it's like a steampunk, like futuristic, or cyberpunk, not steampunk, cyberpunk story, basically in which people, like, they've uploaded their consciousnesses to like, the cloud or whatever, but then they like re-download it into bodies that they can use and stuff. And one of those bodies for this rich guy dies, so he hires somebody to investigate his own murder. Sure. Cloud, and he comes back. So it's based on like a kind of a popular science fiction book, and it looks very high production value.
I'll have to check it out.
It's big, like Blade Runner type look to it. So, if you're into that kind of stuff, it's a pretty big deal series for Netflix. It's pretty high budget.
Might check it out.
You can tell. But yeah, so that's going to be the big series for next week. That's it for the show. So you can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can reach Will. He is at Voxel Hero, Facebook page, and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, TVEnthusiast.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Casts. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening again this week. We'll be back next week, but until then, tuning out.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@TVEnthusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage